across the borders of their own country into another country? No. The
Mhm.
police
No,
aren't
the
allowed
police
to follow a
aren't
criminal
allowed to follow to criminal
across the borders
across the
of their
borders
own country
of their
into
own
another
country
country.
into another country.
Very good. Which countries does your country share a border with? Which countries does your country share a border with? My country
My
doesn't
country
share a border
doesn't share a border
with any country.
with any country.
Very good. What do we generally find along the borders of a field? What do we generally find along the borders of a field? We generally find
We generally
a
find
hedge
a
or
hedge
a fence
or a fence
along the borders
along the
of
borders
a field.
of a field.
Very good. Do you prefer plain clothes or clothes with patterns on them? Do you prefer plain clothes or clothes with patterns on them? I prefer
I prefer plain clothes
than
than
clothes
with clothes
than
with
clothes
than clothes
with patterns
with
on
the
them.
patterns on them.
Very good. Why do you think? Who do you think should be more responsible for setting the correct pattern of behavior for children? Parents or teachers? Who do you think should be more responsible for setting the correct patterns of behavior for children? Parents or teachers? I think
I think parents
should be
should
more
be
responsible
more
for
responsible
setting the correct
for setting
pattern
the correct
of
pattern
behavior for
of
children.
behavior for children.
Where do some people get into financial difficulties through spending too much on their credit card? Do some people get into financial difficulties through spending too much on their credit card? Yes,
Mhm.
some
Yes,
people get
some people
into
get
financial
into
difficulties
financial
di-
difficulties
through spending too
through
much
spending too
on
much
their credit card.
on their credit card.
Very good. Okay, next, what am I doing? What am I doing? You're weaving
You are
the first
weaving
finger
the first
of your
finger
right hand
of your right
over and
hand
under
over and
the
under
fingers
the
of your
fingers
left hand.
of your left hand.
Very good. What are the three forms of weave? What are the three forms of weave? The three forms
The
of
three
weave
forms
are
of
weave,
weave are weave,
woven.
woven.
Very good. What kind of things can we make by weaving? What kind of things can we make by weaving? We can make cloth,
We can make clothes,
baskets, etc.
baskets,
by weaving.
etc. by weaving.
Very good. Are there any parts of your country that have been ruined by tourism? Are there any parts of your country that have been ruined by tourism? Yes or no?
Yes,
There are some
there
parts
are some
of my
parts
country,
of of my
my
country
country that have been ruined
that have been
by
ruined
tourism.
by tourism.
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 Where are there any old ruins in your hometown? Are there any old ruins in your hometown? Yes or no?
Oh yes,
There are some
there
old
are some
ruins
old ruins
in my hometown.
in my hometown.
Where what are they? What are they? They're the ruins
There
of
are ruins or old schools.
old schools. Very good. Okay, what am I doing? What am I doing? You're whispering.
You're whispering.
Why do people whisper? Why do people whisper? People whisper
People whisper
because they don't
because
want
they
others
don't want to
to
others
hear what
to
they're
hear
saying.
what they are saying.
Very good. How do you prefer to see a living room lit with overhead lights or with lamps? How do you
Mhm,
prefer to see a living room lit with overhead lights or with lamps? I prefer
mhm.
to see
I prefer to
a
see
living room lit
a living room lit
with
overhead with overhead
overhead lights.
lights.
Very good. The most people in your area keep their cars in garages or leave them in the street. The most people in your area keep their cars in garages or leave them in the street. Most people in
Most
my
people
area
in my area
keep their cars
keep their
in
cars
garages.
in garages.
Very good. Okay, if you suddenly do a lot of physical exercise after a long period of not having done any exercise at all, do your muscle feel stiff the next day? If you suddenly do a lot of physical exercise after a long period of not having done any exercise at all, do your
Mhm.
muscle feel stiff the next day? Yes. If I
Yes,
suddenly
if I
do a
suddenly
lot
do a
of
lot
physical
of
exercise
physical
after a
exercises
long period
after a long
of not
period
having
of
done
not having
any
done
exercise at
any
all,
exercise at all,
my muscle feels stiff
my muscle feels stiff
the next day.
the next day.
Very good. What is a cereal box usually made of? What is a cereal box usually made of? A cereal box
A serious
is
box
usually
is
made
usually
of cardboard.
made of cardboard.
Very good. Would you be astonished if one of your family members walk into the room right now? Would you be astonished if one of your family members walk into the room right now? Yes or no?
No,
I wouldn't be
I
astonished
wouldn't be
if
astonished
one of
if
my
one
family
of
members
my family
walk
members
into the room
walk
right
into the
now.
room right now.
Very good. What's the noun of the verb to refuse? What's the noun of the verb to refuse? The noun of the
The
verb
noun
to
of the
refuse
verb to
is
refuse is
refusal.
refusal.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. Her refusal to
Her
listen to
refusal
other
to listen
people's
to other
opinions
people's opinions
means that she
means
will
that
never be
she will never
a
be
good manager.
a good manager.
Very good. Is England bounded on all sides by the sea? Is England bounded on all sides by the sea? No. England
No,
isn't
England isn't
bounded on
bounded all the
all
sides,
sides by the
all
sea.
sides by the
It
sea.
shares borders
It shares
with
borders
Scotland
with
and
Scotland
Wales.
and Wales.
Very good. What does a sign on the door saying out of bounds mean? What does a sign on the door saying out of bounds mean? A sign on the
A
door
sign on the door
saying out of
saying
bounds
out of
means
bounds
that
means
nobody is
that
allowed
nobody is
to
allowed
enter the
to
area
enter the area
beyond the door.
beyond the door.
Very good. How does one generally mark the boundary of one's property? How does one generally mark the boundary of one's property? One generally
One
marks the
generally marks
boundary
the
of one's
boundary of
property
one's
with a
property
wall,
with a wall,
fence, hedge,
fence,
etc.
hedge, etc.
Very good. What's a wasp likely to do if it lands on you while you're sunbathing and you disturb it? What's a wasp likely to do if it lands on you while you're sunbathing and you disturb it? If a wasp
If a wasp
lands on you
lands on
while
you
you're sunbathing
while you're
and you
sunbathing
disturb it,
and you disturb
it's
it,
likely to sting you.
it's likely to sting you.
Very good. Which do you think is more painful to be stung by, a bee or a wasp? Which do you think is more painful to be stung by, a bee or a wasp? I think
I
it's more
think
painful
it's more painful
to be stung
to
by
be
a.
stung by a wasp.
Very good. From what else do we get the stinging sensation? From what else do we get the stinging sensation? We get a
We
stinging
get a
sensation
stinging
when we
sensation
are slapped
when we are
by
slapped
someone,
by
when
someone,
we clean a
when
wound,
we clean a wound,
etc.
etc.
Very good. What do we call a piece of hair that forms the shape of a ring? What do we call a piece of hair that forms the shape of a ring? We call a
We
piece
call
of hair
a piece of
that
hair
forms the shape
and forms the shape
of a ring, a
of a
curl.
ring, a car.
The smoke curl upwards when there's a strong wind. The smoke curl upwards when there's a strong wind. No, smoke
No,
doesn't curl
smoke the
upwards.
car
What?
upward.
No, smoke
No,
doesn't
smoke
curl
doesn't car
upwards when
upward.
there's a
When
strong wind.
there a strong
It
wind,
gets blown away.
it gets blown away.
Why do cats and dogs often curl up when they sleep? Why do cats and dogs often curl up when they sleep? Cats and dogs
Cats and dogs
often curl up
often curl
when they
up
sleep
when they sleep
because it
because
prevents the heat
it prevents the
from
heat
their bodies
from their
from
bodies
escaping.
from escaping.
Very good. What's a paste? What's a paste? A paste
A
is a
paste
mixture
is a mixture
made from a powder
made from a
and a
powder
liquid.
and a liquid.
When you go to stay at someone else's house, do you take your own toothpaste with you or do you ask to use their toothpaste? When you go to stay at someone else's house, do you take your own toothpaste with you or do you ask to use their toothpaste? When I
Mhm.
go to
When I
stay
go
at
to
someone
stay
else's
at
house,
someone else's house,
I
I take my
own
toothpaste with
own
me.
toothpaste with me. I
Own
take my own
my
toothpaste
own
with
toothpaste
me.
with me.
Very good. Does one have to have a creative imagination to write a novel? Does one have to have a creative imagination to write a novel? Yes.
Yes,
One has to have
one has to have
a creative
a
imagination
creative
to write
imagination
a novel.
to write a novel.
Very good. What's a store? What's a store? A store
A
is a
store
shop
is a
which
shop
sells
which
a
sells
variety of
a
different
variety
goods.
of different
It
goods.
different goods.
Different goods.
It can either be
It can either
a
be
very large shop
a very large
in the
shop
city
in the city
which sells food,
which sells food,
clothes, furniture,
clothes,
and
furniture,
almost anything
and almost
you can
anything
think of.
you can think of.
Or it can be a shop
Or it can be
in
a
a
shop
village
in
that
a village
sells
that
many
sells
different products
many different
that the
products
people in the
that the
village
people in
might
the
need,
village
might need.
might need.
Like, should wine be stored in warm or cool environment? Should wine be stored in a warm or cool environment? Wine should be
Wine
stored
to be
in a
stored
cool
in a
environment.
cool environment.
Do you keep a store of tin food at home? Do you keep a store of tin food at home? Yes or no?
Yes,
I keep a
I
store
keep a
of
store
tin food at
of
home.
tea food at home.
Very good. Okay, next. What was your favorite toy when you were a child? What was your favorite toy when you were a child? My favorite toy
My favorite
when I
toy
was a child
when I was a child
was
was a stuffed animal toy.
very good. Okay, if you attempted to learn another language at the same time as English, do you think you'd get confused? If you attempted to learn another language at the same time as English, do you think you'd get confused? Yes or no?
Yes,
If I attempted
if I
to learn
attempted
another
to learn
language
another
at the
language
same time
at the
as
same
English,
time as
I
English,
think I'd get
I think
confused.
I get confused.
I'd get confused.
I get confused.
Where was Mount Everest conquered at the first attempt? Was Mount Everest conquered at the first attempt? No. Mount
No,
Everest
Mount
wasn't
Everest
conquered
wasn't
at the
conquered
first attempt.
at the first
Many
attempt.
mountaineers
Many
attempted
mountaineers
to climb it
attempted to climb it
because it was
to it was
before it
before
was finally
it
conquered.
was finally conquered.
Where do men sometimes have to wear bow ties on very formal occasions? Do men sometimes have to wear bow ties in very formal occasions? Yes, men
Yes,
sometimes
men sometimes
have to wear bow
have
ties
to wear bow ties
on very formal
on
occasions.
very formal occasions.
Where what two things do we need for a rainbow to appear? What two things do we need for a rainbow to appear? We need sunshine
We need
and
sunshine
drops of
and
water
drops of
in
water
the atmosphere
in the
for a
atmosphere
rainbow to
for
appear.
a rainbow to appear.
We could name a country where it's common to bow when you're introduced to someone in a formal situation. Name a country where it's common to bow when you're introduced to someone in a formal situation.
Mhm.
Japan is a
Japan
country
is a
where
country
it's common
where it's
to
common
bow when
to
you're
bow when
introduced
you are
to
introduced
someone
to
in a
someone
formal
in
situation.
a formal situation.
Very good. Okay, and that's the end of our revision. Let's have new
Hmm.
work. Okay, repeat. Stove,
Stove,
run on.
run on.
Very good. Okay, listen. A stove can either be used for heating or for cooking,
Hmm.
and it can run on gas, electricity, wood, etc.
Hmm.
Let's practice. What can we use a stove for and what can it run on? What can we use a stove for and what can it run on? We can use a
We can
stove
use a stove
either for heating
either for
or
heating
for cooking,
or for
and
cooking,
it can run on
and it
gas,
can run on gas,
electricity, wood,
electricity,
etc.
wood, etc.
Very good. What kind of things do people keep in their kitchen cupboards? What kind of things do people keep in their kitchen cupboards? People keep food,
People give food,
plates, cups,
weight, cups,
glasses, etc.
glasses,
in
etc.
their kitchen
in
cupboards.
their kitchen cupboard.
Very good. Okay, next repeat. Cupboard.
What?
Cupboard.
Cupboard.
Very good. Okay, listen. Cupboard is a noun. It is a
Hmm.
piece of furniture that we use to keep cups, plates, etc. in.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, next repeat. Current.
Current.
Very good. Okay, listen. Current is an adjective which means at present time. So current,
Hmm.
current time. For
Hmm.
example, the current president of America is Joe Biden. Let's
Hmm.
practice. Who is the current leader of the government in your country? Who is the
Mm.
current leader of the government in your country? The current
Mm.
leader
The current
of the
leader
government in
of
my
the government
country
in my
is
country is
Mr.
Mr. Kishida.
Kishida. Very good. Next, repeat.
Mm.
Awkward.
Awkward.
Very good. Okay, listen. Awkward is an adjective which means
Mm.
uneasy or uncomfortable. For
Mm.
example, during job interviews, it's generally natural to feel awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Another meaning of the word awkward is difficult to use or handle. For example, corkscrews are awkward to use. Yeah, let's practice. Is it quite normal to feel awkward during job interviews? Is it quite normal to feel awkward during job interviews? Yes,
Mm.
it's
Yes,
quite normal
it's quite
to
normal
feel awkward
to feel
during
awkward
job interviews.
during job interview.
Where do you find some corkscrew awkward to use? Do you find some corkscrews awkward to use? Yes, I find some
Yes, I find
corkscrews.
corkscrews.
Yes, I find
Yes, I
some
find
corkscrews
some corkscrews
awkward to use.
too awkward to use.
Very good. What has been the most awkward moment of your life? That is the most embarrassing moment. What has been the
Mm-hmm.
most awkward moment of your life? That is the most embarrassing moment. The
Mm-hmm.
most
The
awkward
most
moment
awkward
of
moment
my life.
of
That
my
is
life
the
that
most
is
embarrassing moment
that's the most embarrassing moment
was
was when I forgot name my old friend.
the name of your old friend. Very good.
I forgot.
Very good. Next, repeat well.
Well,
Very good. Okay, listen. The hole in the ground from which we get water is a well. For example,
mm-hmm,
we get water from a well. Let's
mm-hmm,
practice. What do we call a hole in the ground from which we get water? What do we call the hole in the ground from which we get water? We call a
mm-hmm.
hole
We
in
call
the
a hole
ground
in the
from
ground
which we get
from
water,
which we
a
get
well.
water a well.
Very good. Next, repeat fan.
Fan.
Very good. Okay, listen. Fan can be used
Mm-hmm,
as a verb. For
mm-hmm,
example, I'm fanning myself with my book. Fan can
mm-hmm,
also be a noun. As a noun, it means, for example, an electric fan. There's
mm-hmm,
an electric fan in this room.
mm-hmm,
Okay. Another meaning of fan is a person or a group of people who admire someone or something. For
mm-hmm,
example, I like watching football. I'm a fan of
mm-hmm.
it. Okay, let's
Mm.
practice. What am I doing? What am I doing? You're fanning yourself
You are finding
with
yourself
your book.
with your book.
Is there an electric fan in your room? Is there an electric fan in your room? Yes or no?
Yes,
There's
yes,
an electric
there's
fan
an electric
in my
fan
room.
in my
Are
room.
you a fan of any football club? Are you a fan of any football club? Yes or no?
Oh no,
I'm not a fan
I'm not a
of
fan
any football
of
club.
any football club.
Very good. Okay, so now let's move on to reading.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, so reading is at stage 8, paragraph page 606. Stage 8,
Mm-hmm.
606. Okay, and the last head word was chance. Okay,
Chance.
start with
Okay.
the second
Mm-hmm.
question.
Second question.
Hmm,
Okay. Supposing there
Very
was a place,
That's correct.
shall we say, somewhere in the middle of jungle in South America, where you knew for sure that there was about 50 million pounds
50,
worth of
fif-
gold. 50
that's right.
million pounds worth of gold, but the chances of returning alive were only 50-50. Would you go and take a chance and try your luck, or would you just stay at home and dream about it?
Very good.
Supporting